I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been snared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro still sadly languishing in the corners of American society. 100 years later, the Negro finds himself in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. Some of that, you know, where that speech came from. That's from the famous Dr. Martin Luther King speech that he delivered in August of 1963. Today, I want to talk to you about plagiarizing. Plagiarizing in terms of what happened today or last night with Mrs. Trump lifting some words from Michelle Obama 2008 speech. Well, the thing about it, she got caught. What I want to convey to you is that use your experience. There's nothing like your own experience. What are the similarities between Melania and Michelle? They're both mothers. They both want to see their children raised in a safe environment. They both want their children to be productive citizens of society. So instead of plagiarizing, use your own words. Now, sometimes we could read other people's material to get some information or get a vibe of it. But then what we should do is turn that around and use that from our site. Now, what Martin Luther King said in his I Have a Dream speech are things that he conveyed of he wanted to see unity amongst his people and equality amongst the African American compared to those of other races, just to be treated fairly. So instead of using his speech word for word, I could still take from the strength and the meaning, the context of the words that he used and apply it to my life or to my vision of how I see things that's going on. Are we treated fairly? Are we African Americans being treated fairly? Of course not. We're not. But I could convey that message from my standpoint, from my view. I also want to use this for pastors because interestingly enough, you know how you go on YouTube and you see one video, and then after that video, you see another video come, and then another video. So I got kind of caught up in the different viewing video after video. One thing I noticed was it had been a few weeks ago or so. I don't know. I don't know if it was on Periscope or I don't know, inside church, but I heard a pastor say, an eagle, when an eagle is contending with his enemy, which is a snake, when he's on the ground, he's at a disadvantage. But when that eagle takes that snake up and fly into the air, now the snake is at the disadvantage. So when he said that, I was like, wow, that's a powerful insight. Then I saw it on a video. Then I saw it on a video. I was like, wow. So plagiarizing is just seeing something and using your own imagination and your creativity that God has given you and using it and not plagiarizing. I could give you another example, and I could use myself if you allow me to be transparent. I remember in when I was in this doctoral program, at the beginning of my doctoral program, I fell behind and I was a little overwhelmed. I had two classes and I had two papers to turn in, and this body of paper that I had to turn in, both of them had to be a minimum of 15 pages, like 15 to 18 pages, because in advanced studies, they have you, and particularly in my school, they have you building your paper. So you start with the thesis question or whatever, and then your introduction, your population that you're talking about, and then how you would defend your paper or whatever. So I had two papers to do, and both of them had to be a minimum of 15 pages. So when I started in this doctoral program, I always stayed around the same subject. So my subject always was anything with African American women and also African American youth. So, so one paper I was able to complete, but the other paper I was falling short. I was at like 8 pages. I needed 15. So my own work, because remember, I always stick around the same subjects of women, African American women, and youth. I had to meet the deadline. So my work that I did, I cut and paste, and I put it inside that second paper. So, they have a lot of programs where you could turn they call like turn it in, where if something's plagiarized or whatever, it'll pick it up. So sure enough, that portion of my paper, the plagiarism software picked it up, and it said there's a student at this school, whatever, that did a paper with this wording. So my professor emailed me, and he said, Miss Parker, this paper says that it has parts of it that's been plagiarized. And I said, Professor, I was falling short, and I used some of my work from a previous paper. He said, Miss Parker, you remember what the school policy is, because at the beginning of each semester, of each class, you have to say that you understand what plagiarism is. So he said, and it says it's a Capella student, and I had to end up showing him the paper that the original work was from. So he said, Miss Parker, he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an incomplete, and I'm going to allow you until the end of the next quarter to redo this paper. So I had consequences to pay for it. I had consequences, although it was my written work. And what they call that is self plagiarism. I plagiarized myself. So the consequences was that I got it incomplete until I turned the paper in, and then I'll get one grade lower. So I turned the paper in just before the last week of the next quarter, and I got a B inside the class. I didn't allow myself the time. I didn't allow myself to prepare. That's a whole nother situation I'll discuss about, procrastination. And I fell behind, and I was unable to complete the task. And because I was unable to complete the task, I went and I grabbed some work from I grabbed some words or some information that technically belonged to me, but it wasn't for that particular class. Should have given them new information. So now I want to flip this in and talk about those who, we talk about what happened with Melania, but also we have to talk about those pastors who flip other people sermons. And not too long ago we dealt with a prophet that flipped someone else's words of a psychic. So we just have to be careful. Let's use our creativity and information. Let's take time. That's the lesson that I learned. That was at the beginning of my coursework. Now I'm at the end. I have no more coursework, just my comprehensive exam and my dissertation. But that lesson that I learned, because they could very well put me out, but I had to prove that that work came from my own work. But still, that was called self-plagiarism, because I didn't take the time to prepare, to study, giving myself time to look over the information, to reproduce the information or correctly. See, that's the problem with plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you don't give credit to the author, the original author. That's something that they emphasize heavily inside academia. So I wanted to push you and to encourage you, brothers and sisters, that you go out there and you investigate the work, you respect the work, you respect your audience, you respect other authors, your co-laborers in the gospel. So when you use some information, you cite it. Oh, like TD Jake says, get ready, get ready, get ready. Just giving you an example. But to take the time and prepare and use the creativity that God has given you. So if you like this,